Hello, everybody. It's Tanya again. Today's Bible lesson, we're going to continue on talking about David. Today, we're going to talk about the blueprints for David's reign. So, in 1 Samuel, we left off at chapter 17, where we learned that David killed Goliath. Chapters 18 through 23 tells about how David was pursued by Saul and his men and other stories, and Saul became jealous of David and sought to kill him. So today's lesson is on chapter 24, and please read the other chapters if you have time to, but today let's focus on how God always provides a way for his anointed ones. And so chapter 24 says, "And it came to pass when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi." Excuse me. So Saul was still fighting the Philistines, and he returns home to hear word of David's location. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men. Excuse me, y'all. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And so Saul, he took 3,000 men to seek David. Does that make y'all think that he was a little scared of David? 3,000 men to find one man? And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave, and Saul went in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. So Saul came upon a cave and went in to rest a while, not knowing that David and his men were already there. And the men of David said unto him, Behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. So David's men knew that Saul had been delivered unto them, and David cut off the skirt of Saul. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. So David's heart bothered him because he did that. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David said that the Lord had forbidden him to do anything bad to Saul, who was also an anointed one. And so David stayed his servants with these words and suffered them not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. And so David commended his men not to harm Saul. He commanded them, and Saul left out of the cave untouched. David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul, saying, My lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed himself. And so David went out of the cave and spoke to Saul, and he humbled himself before Saul. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, Behold, David seeketh thy hurt. And so he's telling Saul that he could have hurt him if he had wanted to. He had the power to do that, but he chose not to. Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord had delivered thee today into mine hand in the cave. And some bade me kill thee, but mine eye spared thee. And I said, I will not put forth mine hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. So David explains to Saul that he has been delivered into his hands, but did not harm him. He chose not to do so. He's showing him his side of how he chooses to use his anointing. Verse 11, Moreover, my father, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand, for in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not. Know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee. Yet thou huntest my soul to take it. So David explains that he could have killed him and was showing Saul what he had done to him. He had used what God had given him for good to chase after David and because he was jealous of him, and that was not what the anointing was meant to do, because he was trying to kill David, and David could have killed him and did not. Verse 12, the Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. So the Lord was judging David's heart, and he did right by the Lord by not harming Saul. Verse 13, as saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. So David chooses not to be wicked, and that's God's power. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom doest thou pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. So I believe that this is a metaphor for a dog being Saul and the flea being David, because he is so small compared to Saul and his army, but a king he shall become. Verse 15, the Lord therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see, and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand. So the Lord judged them according to his work. Were they obedient? What did the power do to them? In my note, Saul got the big head. He just thought he was something else, and God, was going to continue to bless him while he was doing evil, and that wasn't so. And while David humbled himself before the Lord, and the Lord continued to bless him. Verse 16, and it came to pass when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, is this thy voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. So David spoke to him and Saul. To me, this sounds like he woke up from being under all of that wickedness. Remember that God had put that spell per se on him where all that evil spirits had came to him. I think at this point he woke up and seen what was going on. 17, and he said to David, thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. So Saul admits his sin. He was evil to David. And thou hast showed this day how that thou hast dealt well with me, for as much as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. So Saul knew that he had been delivered unto David by the hands of God, and David chose not to kill him. So Saul woke up and now is realizing what is going on. Verse 19, for if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Wherefore the Lord reward thee good, for thou hast done unto me this day. So Saul knew that God had blessed David, because any other enemy would have killed him. No questions asked. Verse 20, and now behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. So Saul knew then that David would become king. Swear now therefore unto me by the Lord that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. So Saul asked David not to kill his family, his seed. And I know that Jonathan, which was Saul's oldest son, and David, the Bible I was reading in those chapters before, he binded their hearts together, their souls. And so they were, soul brothers, I guess is the best way to say that. And so David, he sticks to his word and doesn't do anything to Saul's family. And at the end it says, verse 22, and David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men got them up unto the hole. And so David swore not to do so, like I was saying, he swore not to hurt Saul's family. So far, we've learned in these chapters that David is becoming the type of king that God wanted to lead his people in Israel. And so he's laying the blueprints for what is to come, and the blueprints for David's reign. That's what we were talking about today. And so he came from being a shepherd boy, which is the first story that I've done. Then we talked about him being a giant slayer, and now he's paving the way for his reign that is to come, and that will be what I'll be probably teaching on tomorrow. I hope that y'all enjoyed this lesson. I sure did. And as always, have a God bless day. I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.